The Outcast's Return. The vast emptiness of space surrounded the aging space station that orbited Earth, a silent sentinel marking humanity's fall from grace in the galactic community. It had been 50 years since the quarantine was imposed, isolating Earth from the rest of the civilized universe. The reason? A disastrous first contact that had branded humans as too volatile, too unpredictable to join the ranks of spacefaring races. Commander Alexis Chen stood at the viewport, her weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass. At 45, she was considered young for her position, but life on a quarantine planet aged people faster than standard years could measure. Her dark eyes scanned the stars, searching for something, anything, that might break the monotony of their cosmic prison. As if answering her unspoken wish, a light on the console behind her began to pulse urgently. Chen spun around, her heart racing as she realized what it meant. After half a century of silence, they were receiving a transmission from deep space. "Officer Ramirez," she barked, summoning her communications expert. "Report." A young man with cybernetic implants lining his temples rushed to the console. His fingers danced over the holographic interface, decoding the incoming signal. "Commander, it's a distress call," he said, his voice trembling with excitement and disbelief. Chen leaned over his shoulder, her eyes widening as she read the message. It was from a research vessel, stranded on a distant planet in the Andromeda galaxy. The ship's crew, a mix of various alien species, was trapped and facing an unknown threat. They were calling for help from anyone who could reach them. "But why can we hear this?" Chen muttered, more to herself than to Ramirez. "The quarantine. The signal's using an old emergency frequency," Ramirez explained, "one that predates our isolation. The galactic community must have forgotten to block it." Chen straightened up, a fire igniting in her eyes. This was it, the chance humanity had been waiting for. A way to prove their worth, to show the galaxy that they weren't the savages they'd been labeled as. But who would they send? Their best and brightest were either too old or too inexperienced with the realities of space travel. That's when an idea struck her, one so audacious it might just work. "Get me a line to Earth Central Command," she ordered Ramirez, "and prepare a full briefing on the signal. We're going to need volunteers." Hours later, in a hidden facility deep beneath the streets of New Shanghai, a group of society's cast-offs gathered in a dimly lit room. Ex-convicts, disgraced soldiers, and social misfits. These were the people Earth's governments had deemed expendable enough for such a risky mission. At the head of the table stood Zora Kuri, a former master thief with a genius for breaking into the most secure locations. Her dark skin was adorned with bioluminescent tattoos, a relic of her time in the asteroid mining colonies. Beside her, towering over the rest, was Viktor Sokolov, a behemoth of a man whose augmented muscles strained against his shirt. He'd been the enforcer for the Russian cyber mafias before a change of heart led him to turn state's evidence. Lounging in a chair, feet propped up on the table, was Dr. Elias Frost, a brilliant xenobiologist whose unethical experiments had seen him stripped of his credentials. His icy blue eyes surveyed the room with detached amusement. Across from him, fingers twitching nervously, sat Hiroshi Tanaka, a savant hacker who'd been arrested for nearly crashing the global economic system, just to see if he could. Rounding out the group was Amara Okafor, a former Special Forces operative discharged for disobeying orders to save civilian lives. Her scared face remained impassive as Commander Chen entered the room, flanked by armed guards. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen began, her voice cutting through the tense silence. "I won't sugarcoat this. You're here because you're expendable. Society has written you off. But today, I'm offering you a chance at redemption." She activated a holographic display, showing the distress signal and the limited information they had on the stranded research vessel. "This mission is unauthorized by the galactic community. If you're caught, Earth will disavow all knowledge of your actions. If you succeed, however, you may just change the course of human history." Zara leaned forward, her eyes glinting with interest. "What's in it for us?" besides a suicide mission. Chen smiled grimly. Full pardons, reinstatement of all rights and privileges, and the chance to be the first humans to set foot on an alien world in half a century. A murmur ran through the group. It was a long shot, a one-way ticket to either glory or gruesome death. But for people who had nothing left to lose, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. I assume, drawled Dr. Frost, that our unique skill sets are why we've been chosen for this little adventure. Chen nodded. Your past actions may have branded you as criminals, but they also prove you can think outside the box. Where trained astronauts might falter, you might see solutions no one else would consider. Amara Okafor stood up, her voice steady as she addressed the commander. When do we leave? The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of preparation. In secret hangars, a ship was readied. The HFY Redemption, a prototype vessel that had been mothballed after the quarantine. It was sleek, fast, and equipped with technology reverse-engineered from the limited alien artifacts Earth had managed to acquire before their isolation. As the Galactic crew boarded, each carrying the weight of their past and the hopes of humanity on their shoulders, they couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and dread. This was their shot at writing a new chapter not just for themselves, but for their entire species. Commander Chen watched from the control room as the Redemption's engines flared to life. Godspeed, she whispered as the ship shot into the sky, breaking through Earth's atmosphere in a blaze of defiance against their cosmic imprisonment. As the blue marble of their homeworld shrank behind them, Zara took her place at the helm. Well, folks, she said with a nervous grin, anyone know how to fly this thing? Hiroshi's fingers were already dancing over the ship's systems. I've hacked more complex AIs in my sleep. Give me an hour, and I'll have this baby purring like a kitten. As the Redemption accelerated towards the unknown, carrying its crew of misfits turned potential saviors, the first chapter of humanity's return to the stars had begun. Whether it would end in triumph or tragedy remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. The galaxy was about to remember why humans were a force to be reckoned with. Trial by fire. The HFY Redemption hurtled through the cosmic void, its experimental engines pushing the limits of physics as humanity understood it. Inside the ship, the unlikely crew of ex-convicts and social outcasts had settled into an uneasy rhythm over the past week. Zara Kori stood at the helm, her bioluminescent tattoos pulsing in sync with the ship's power fluctuations. We're approaching the coordinates, she announced, her voice tense with anticipation. Dr. Elias Frost looked up from his console, where he'd been analyzing the little data they had on their destination. Fascinating, he muttered. The planet seems to be on the edge of a binary star system. The gravitational forces at play must be extraordinary. Viktor Sokolov, the hulking ex-enforcer, cracked his augmented knuckles. Less talk about science, more talk about what's waiting for us. Any signs of the thing that has those researchers trapped? Before Frost could reply, alarms blared throughout the ship. Hiroshi's hands flew across his terminal, his cybernetic implants glowing as he interfaced directly with the Redemption systems. Multiple contacts, he shouted. Large vessels, unknown configuration. They're not matching any Earth records. Amara Okafor, the former Special Forces operative, was already strapping herself into the weapons console. Looks like the welcoming committee, she said grimly. And I don't think they're here to shake hands. The view screen lit up with a dazzling array of ships, their designs so alien and advanced that they seemed to defy the laws of physics. Sleek, crystalline structures that pulsed with internal light, massive organic-looking vessels that seemed more like space-borne leviathans than constructed ships, and swarms of smaller craft that moved with uncanny precision. They're hailing us, Hiroshi reported, his voice shaky. A moment later, a holographic projection flickered to life in the center of the bridge. The being that appeared was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. A shimmering, multi-limbed entity that seemed to be composed of pure energy. Unidentified vessel, the alien's voice resonated in their minds rather than their ears. You have entered restricted space. Your presence here violates galactic law. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Zara's hand hovered over the ship's controls. Any bright ideas? She asked, glancing around at her crewmates. Negative. The alien interrupted. No such initiative is authorized in this sector. You will comply or... The transmission cut off abruptly as Hiroshi completed his work. Done, he exclaimed. As far as their systems are concerned, we're now registering as one of their own scout ships. Zara didn't waste a second. She punched the Redemption's engines to full power, sending the ship hurtling towards the planet's atmosphere. The alien fleet, momentarily confused by the conflicting data, hesitated just long enough for the humans to slip past their perimeter. They're onto us, Amara shouted as enemy fire began to light up space around them. Evasive maneuvers. What followed was a harrowing dance through a gauntlet of energy beams and gravitational weapons. Zara's piloting skills, honed through years of evading law enforcement, were pushed to their limits as she wove the Redemption through the onslaught. Victor, strapped into the engineering station, rerouted power to critical systems as they took hit after hit. We can't take much more of this, he roared over the sound of stringing metal. Just when it seemed their luck had run out, the Redemption plunged into the planet's upper atmosphere. Flames licked at the viewports as Zara fought to maintain control of their descent. Alien ships breaking off pursuit, Hiroshi reported, relief evident in his voice. Looks like they're not equipped for atmospheric entry. As the ship plummeted towards the planet's surface, the crew caught their first glimpse of the world they'd come to save. Massive purple-hued forests stretched as far as the eye could see, broken only by glittering crystal formations that jutted from the ground like colossal gemstones. I'm picking up the distress signal, Amara called out. It's coming from inside one of those crystals. Zara gritted her teeth as she maneuvered the battered Redemption towards the coordinates. Everybody hang on, she warned. This landing's going to be rough. The ship hit the ground with a bone-jarring impact, skidding across the alien landscape before coming to rest at the base of an enormous crystal structure. As the dust settled, the crew unstrapped themselves, each taking stock of their injuries and the damage to the ship. Well, Dr. Frost said, wiping a trickle of blood from his forehead, I'd say that qualifies as a successful first contact, wouldn't you? Victor snorted as he pried open the jammed airlock. If this is success, I'd hate to see failure. As the crew stepped out onto the alien world, the true scale of their predicament became clear. The crystal before them towered hundreds of meters into the sky, its facets reflecting the light of the binary stars overhead. And there, barely visible near its base, was a hole, an entrance that looked decidedly unnatural. Amara readied her weapon, a prototype plasma rifle that had been gathering dust in an Earth armory. So we've got a hostile alien fleet above us, an unknown threat that's got a bunch of researchers trapped, and no way off this rock unless we can repair the ship. Just another day at the office, right? Zara checked her own gear, a collection of high-tech lockpicks and hacking tools that had served her well in her former life. Look on the bright side, she said with a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. At least we're making history. As the team cautiously approached the crystal's entrance, they could hear faint sounds echoing from within, a mix of mechanical whirring and what might have been voices, if voices could sound quite so alien. Hiroshi, his cybernetic implants scanning the crystal, frowned. I'm picking up multiple life signs inside. But there's something else. Something big. And it's moving. Dr. Frost's eyes lit up with scientific curiosity. Fascinating. A silicon-based life form, perhaps, or some kind of energy being. Whatever it is, Victor growled, flexing his augmented muscles. It's between us and the people we came to rescue. So let's introduce ourselves, shall we? With a shared look of determination, the crew of misfits turned galactic saviors stepped into the unknown depths of the crystal structure. They had survived their trial by fire in space, but as they would soon discover, their true test was only just beginning. The entrance sealed behind them with a soft hiss, plunging them into a world of refracted light and impossible geometries. Somewhere in the labyrinth ahead, their quarry awaited, along with dangers beyond their wildest imaginations. As they ventured deeper, none of them could shake the feeling that they were being watched, studied, judged. The crystal seemed to pulse with an otherworldly intelligence, as if the very structure itself was alive and aware of their presence. Little did they know that their actions in the coming hours would not only determine the fate of the stranded researchers, but would rewrite humanity's place in the cosmic order. The outcasts of Earth were about to become the vanguard of a new age, if they could survive what awaited them in the heart of the crystal. The hunted become hunters. The crystal caverns stretched before them, a maze of refracted light and impossible angles. Zara led the way, her thief's instincts on high alert as she navigated the twisting passages. Behind her, Victor's heavy footsteps echoed, his augmented muscles coiled and ready for action. "This place defies every law of physics I know," Dr. Frost muttered, his scientific curiosity warring with his sense of self-preservation. "The crystal structure seems to be growing, adapting to our presence." Hiroshi nodded, his cybernetic implants pulsing as he scanned their surroundings. "It's like the whole thing is one giant computer. I'm picking up data streams, but the encryption is like nothing I've ever seen." Amara brought up the rear, her plasma rifle at the ready. "Less admiring, more moving," she hissed. "We're not alone in here." As if on cue, a shriek echoed through the crystal corridors, a sound that sent chills down their spines. It was part mechanical screech, part organic roar, and wholly terrifying. "I think we found our big, moving something," Victor growled, cracking his knuckles. They pressed on, the passages growing narrower and more convoluted. Suddenly, Zara held up a hand, signaling the group to stop. Ahead, a chamber opened up, bathed in an eerie, pulsating light. "Look," she whispered, pointing to a group of figures huddled in a far corner. The research team they'd come to rescue. A motley crew of aliens of various species, their forms barely recognizable to human eyes. They were surrounded by a shimmering force field, their faces etched with fear and exhaustion. But it was what stalked the center of the chamber that drew their attention. A creature that defied description. Part crystal, part machine, part writhing organic mass. It moved with a predatory grace, tendrils of energy arsing from its body to the surrounding crystal walls. "Fascinating," Dr. Frost breathed, his eyes wide. "It appears to be some sort of biomechanical hybrid, perfectly adapted to this crystalline environment. I wonder if—" "Wonder later," Amara cut him off. "Right now, we need a plan to get past that thing and reach the researchers." Zara's mind raced, drawing on years of experience in outwitting security systems and evading capture. "We need to understand its behavior," she said. "Hiroshi, can you tap into any of the data streams you detected earlier?" The hacker nodded, his fingers flying over his portable interface. "I'll try, but it'll take time, and I can't guarantee I won't alert it to our presence." "Do it," Zara decided. "Victor, be ready to draw its attention if we're spotted. Amara, cover him. Dr. Frost, see if you can make sense of what Hiroshi finds." As Hiroshi worked, the creature continued its patrol of the chamber, each movement sending ripples of energy through the crystal structure. Minutes ticked by, the tension mounting with each passing second. Suddenly, Hiroshi's eyes widened. "I'm in," he whispered. "But this is weird. The data, it's not just information. It's alive somehow." Dr. Frost leaned in, his scientific mind racing to keep up with what he was seeing. "It's a hive mind," he realized. The creature, the crystals, even the force field trapping the researchers. They're all part of one massive, evolving organism. "Great," Victor rumbled. "How do we kill it?" "We don't," Zara said, a plan forming in her mind. "We become part of it." The others looked at her like she'd lost her mind, but Zara pressed on. "Think about it. We're criminals, outcasts. We understand predatory behavior better than anyone. If we can interface with this hive mind, maybe we can misdirect it, make it see us as part of itself. Dr. Frost nodded slowly, catching on. Use our own experiences as camouflage within its consciousness. Brilliant, but incredibly dangerous. More dangerous than being torn apart by that thing. Amara asked, gesturing to the creature. Zara turned to Hiroshi. Can you create an interface for us? Something that'll let us project our thoughts into the data stream. The hacker hesitated, then nodded. I can rig something up with our comm units, but it's going to hurt. A lot. Do it, Zara ordered. What followed was a frantic few minutes of jury-rigging their equipment, all while keeping a wary eye on the patrolling creature. Finally, Hiroshi handed out the modified comm units. Remember, Dr. Frost cautioned, we need to think like predators, like the outcast society made us out to be. It's our only chance of blending in with this thing's consciousness. Zara took a deep breath, looking at each of her companions in turn. Ready. With grim nods, they activated the devices. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. It felt like their minds were being torn apart and reassembled, merged with the alien consciousness that permeated the crystal structure. Memories flashed before their eyes, not just their own, but fragments of alien thoughts and experiences. Zara saw herself not as a human, but as a tendril of crystal, probing and seeking. She felt the hunger of the creature, its drive to consume and adapt. Drawing on her years as a thief, she projected thoughts of stealth, of blending in, of becoming unseen. Victor became a node of raw power within the network, his experiences as an enforcer translating into currents of intimidation and strength. Amara's military precision formed pathways of order within the chaos, while Dr. Frost's scientific mind created pockets of analytical calm. Hiroshi was everywhere at once, his hacker's instincts allowing him to flit between data streams, subtly altering and redirecting the flow of information. The creature in the chamber paused, sensing the new presences within its consciousness. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed to focus directly on their hiding spot. Then, slowly, it turned away, apparently accepting them as part of itself. Moving as one, the human team crept into the chamber. To the watching researchers, it must have seemed like a miracle. 5 figures walking openly past the dreaded creature, untouched and unnoticed. As they reached the force field, Hiroshi's mind raced through the system, finding the command structures that controlled it. With a thought, he deactivated the barrier. The researchers stumbled forward, their alien features etched with a mix of fear and hope. Zara gestured urgently for them to follow, praying that the creature would continue to ignore them. Step by agonizing step, they made their way back through the crystal maze. Each moment was a battle to maintain their mental camouflage, to keep projecting the thoughts and intentions that allowed them to blend in with the hive mind. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the entrance. As the last of the researchers stumbled out into the alien sunlight, Zara gave the mental command to sever their connection to the hive mind. The separation was like being doused in ice water. They fell to their knees, gasping and shaking as their minds reeled from the experience. We did it," Amara panted, her usual stoic demeanor cracking to reveal a smile of disbelief. "Not yet," Zara said, forcing herself to her feet. "We still need to get off this planet and past that fleet." As if in response to her words, a rumble shook the ground. The crystal structure behind them began to shift and grow, tendrils reaching out towards them. "I think it's realized we're not part of it anymore," Dr. Frost said, his voice tight with fear and exhilaration. "Run!" Zora shouted. As they sprinted towards the battered redemption, the crystal forest around them came alive. The hunt was on, and this time they were the prey. But as Zara looked at her team, outcasts and criminals turned heroes, she felt a fierce pride. They had done the impossible once already. Now, they just had to do it again. The race to escape the planet and rewrite humanity's cosmic destiny had begun, and Zara was determined that this time, the hunters would not become the hunted. Redemption's Gambit. The crystal forest writhed and pulsed around them as Zara and her team raced towards the Redemption, the rescued researchers stumbling along in their wake. Behind them, the creature they had deceived was no longer fooled, its roar of fury shaking the very ground beneath their feet. "Hiroshi," Zara shouted as they ran. "Tell me you can get that ship flying." The hacker's cybernetic implants were already interfacing with the Redemption systems. "Working on it, but we took a lot of damage on the way in. We're going to need a miracle to break atmosphere." They reached the ship, Victor practically tearing the airlock open with his augmented strength. As the others piled in, Amara took up a defensive position, her plasma rifle spitting bolts of energy at the approaching crystal tendrils. "Any time now, folks," she called out, her voice tense as she watched the forest close in around them. Inside the ship, it was chaos. Dr. Frost was attempting to communicate with the alien researchers, trying to glean any information that might help them escape. Zara threw herself into the pilot's seat, her hands flying over the controls as Hiroshi fed power to the engines. "We've got incoming," Victor's voice boomed from the sensor station. "Looks like our friends in orbit haven't given up." The view screen lit up with the image of the alien fleet descending through the atmosphere, their sleek ships cutting through the sky like avenging angels. Zara gritted her teeth. "Caught between the devil and the deep blue sea," she muttered. "Or in this case, a pissed-off crystal monster and a trigger-happy alien armada." That's when an idea struck her, a crazy, suicidal idea born of desperation and the kind of thinking that had made her crew the perfect choice for this mission in the first place. "Hiroshi, can you reactivate the comm units we used to interface with the crystal hivement?" The hacker looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "You want to go back in there? That thing will tear our minds apart." "Not us," Zora said, a fierce grin spreading across her face. "Them." She pointed to the approaching fleet on the view screen. Understanding dawned in Hiroshi's eyes. "You want to broadcast the hive mind signal to the fleet. Make them think they're being invaded." "Exactly," Zora nodded. "If we can't outfight them, we'll outthink them. It's what humans do best." Dr. Frost joined them, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "And if we modulate the signal correctly, we might be able to use the fleet's own energy weapons against the crystal entity. 2 birds, 1 stone." "Do it," Zara ordered. "Victor, reroute all power to the comms and engines. Amara, be ready with whatever weapons we got left. This is going to get bumpy." As the team scrambled to enact their desperate plan, the world outside descended into chaos. The crystal entity, enraged at being deceived, lashed out with tendrils of energy that arsed towards the descending fleet. The alien ships, their sensors suddenly overwhelmed by the broadcasted hive mind signal, began to fire wildly, their energy weapons cutting swaths through the crystal forest. Zara's hands danced over the Redemption's controls, coaxing every ounce of power from the battered engines. The ship shuddered and groaned as it lifted off, debris pattering against the hull like rain. "It's working," Hiroshi shouted over the din. "The fleet's tearing itself apart trying to fight off the hive mind." Through the view screen, they watched as ship after ship fell from the sky, their crews overwhelmed by the alien consciousness they'd inadvertently connected to. The crystal entity, bombarded by energy weapons it couldn't adapt to quickly enough, began to crack and splinter. But their victory was far from assured. As they climbed higher, the remaining ships of the fleet turned their attention to the escaping Redemption. "We've got multiple locks on us," Victor reported, his voice grim. "Our shields are barely functioning. One good hit and we're space dust." Zara's mind raced, drawing on every trick and scheme she'd ever concocted. "Hiroshi, can you use the hive mind signal to mask our engine signature? Make us look like one of them." The hacker's fingers flew over his console. "I can try, but it won't fool them for long." "Long enough to get past the gravity well," Zara said. That's all we need." What followed was the most harrowing flight of their lives. Zara pushed the Redemption to its absolute limits, weaving through the remains of the alien fleet. Energy beams lanced past them, close enough to scorch the hull. Debris from destroyed ships threatened to tear them apart at every turn. But somehow, impossibly, they climbed higher and higher. The blue-purple sky of the alien world gave way to the star-studded blackness of space. "We're clear of the atmosphere," Amara reported, her voice tight with tension. "But our engines are redlining. We can't take much more of this." Zara allowed herself a small, fierce smile. "We don't need to," she said. "Hiroshi, disengage the hive mind broadcast. Let's show them who we really are." As the signal cut off, the remaining alien ships seemed to falter, confused by the sudden disappearance of their quarry. In that moment of hesitation, Zara made her final move. "All power to the engines," she shouted. "Plot a course for the nearest neural jump point." The Redemption surged forward, its overtaxed engines screaming in protest. Behind them, the alien ship scrambled to give chase, but it was too late. With a flash of energy that lit up the system like a newborn star, the battered human vessel vanished into faster-than-light travel. In the sudden silence that followed, the crew of the Redemption looked at each other in disbelief. They had done it. They had rescued the researchers, outsmarted an alien hive mind, and escaped a superior force against impossible odds. But their journey was far from over. As the adrenaline of their escape faded, the reality of their situation set in. They were alone in uncharted space, with a ship on the verge of falling apart, and a group of alien refugees who would need to be returned to their homes. More than that, they carried with them the key to humanity's redemption in the eyes of the galactic community. The data they had gathered, the alliances they had forged with the rescued researchers, and the sheer audacity of their accomplishment would change everything. As Zara looked around at her crew, former criminals and outcasts who had become heroes, she felt a swell of pride. They had been chosen for this mission because they were expendable, but they had proven themselves to be indispensable. "Well, folks," she said, a weary but triumphant grin spreading across her face, "I'd say we've earned ourselves a place in the history books. Now, who's ready to go home and show Earth what humanity is really capable of?" The cheer that went up in response was all the answer she needed. Their redemption was at hand, and with it, a new chapter in human history was about to be written. A new dawn for humanity. The Redemption limped through space, its hull scared and systems barely functioning after their harrowing escape. Inside, the mood was a strange mix of exhaustion and elation. Zara and her crew of former outcasts had achieved the impossible, but the greatest challenge still lay ahead: returning to Earth and facing the consequences of their unauthorized mission. Dr. Frost worked tirelessly with the alien researchers, piecing together the incredible discoveries they had made. The crystal entity, he explained to the others during one of their strategy sessions, it wasn't just a threat. It was an ancient terraforming system gone haywire, adapting and evolving beyond its original purpose. Hiroshi nodded, his cybernetic implants glowing softly as he processed the information. "And the data we gathered from interfacing with it. It's revolutionary. The potential applications in AI, in biotech, in energy production, it's beyond anything humanity has ever seen." As they approached the edge of Earth's solar system, tension mounted. Would they be welcomed as heroes or arrested as renegades? "Incoming transmission," Victor announced from his station, his gruff voice tinged with uncertainty. It's the Galactic Peacekeeping Force." Zara straightened in her chair, exchanging worried glances with her crew. This was it, the moment of truth. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the stern-faced alien official. Its multifaceted eyes regarded them coldly. "Unidentified vessel," the alien spoke, its words translated by their ship's computer. "You are in violation of multiple galactic laws, including the quarantine of Sol system and interference with a restricted zone. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded." Zara took a deep breath, ready to argue their case, when one of the alien researchers they had rescued stepped forward. It was a spindly, insectoid being, its exoskeleton shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. "Belay that order," the researcher said, its mandibles clicking as it addressed the official. "These humans are not to be arrested. They are to be commended." What followed was a flurry of explanations and negotiations. The rescued researchers, representing some of the most respected scientific institutions in the galaxy, vouched for the Redemption's crew. They spoke of the humans' bravery, ingenuity, and self-sacrifice in the face of an unprecedented threat. As the story unfolded, the official's demeanor changed from stern to amazed. "Is this true?" it asked Zara directly. "You interfaced with the Crystal Hivemond. You turned a fleet against itself." Zara nodded, standing tall despite her exhaustion. "We did what we had to do to complete our mission and save lives. If that means facing punishment, so be it. But know this, humanity is ready to take its place among the stars. We've proven that today." There was a long pause as the official conferred with others off-screen. Finally, it turned back to them, its expression now one of grudging respect. "The Galactic Council will need to review this in full," it said, "but given the testimony of the rescued scientists and the data you've acquired, we are prepared to reassess humanity's status in the galactic community." A cheer went up from the Redemption's crew. Zara felt a weight lift from her shoulders. They had done it. They had changed the course of human history. The return to Earth was nothing short of triumphant. As news of their accomplishment spread, crowds gathered to welcome them home. The very governments that had written them off as expendable now hailed them as heroes. In the days that followed, Earth buzzed with activity. Galactic diplomats arrived to begin negotiations for lifting the quarantine. Scientists from around the world pored over the data brought back by the Redemption, marveling at the possibilities it presented. For Zara and her crew, the change was even more profound. Their criminal records were expunged, their rights fully restored. But more than that, they found themselves at the forefront of humanity's new golden age. Zara, with her unorthodox problem-solving skills, became a key advisor in Earth's new diplomatic corps. Victor's strength and loyalty made him the perfect candidate to lead Earth's first official peacekeeping force. Amara's tactical brilliance found a home in designing defense systems to protect human colonies. Dr. Frost, his passion for knowledge now unrestricted, led joint human-alien research teams in unraveling the mysteries of the crystal entity. And Hiroshi, his cybernetic skills now recognized as an asset rather than a threat, spearheaded efforts to integrate human and alien technologies. 1 year after their return, the crew of the Redemption gathered on an observation deck overlooking Earth's first official spaceport. Ships of various alien designs mingled with human vessels, a testament to the new era of cooperation. "Not bad for a bunch of expendables, eh?" Zora said, raising a glass in toast. Victor chuckled, his augmented frame relaxed for perhaps the first time in years. From outcasts to saviors, who would have thought? "The real work is just beginning," Amara reminded them, but there was a smile on her usually stern face. "We've got a whole galaxy to explore now." Dr. Frost nodded enthusiastically. "And so much to learn. The scientific possibilities are endless. And think of all the new systems to hack," Hiroshi added with a mischievous grin, earning a playful shove from Zara. As they looked out at the bustling spaceport, at the world they had changed through their actions, each of them felt a sense of purpose they had never known before. They had been brought together as a desperate gamble, a team of misfits sent on a suicide mission. Instead, they had become the architects of humanity's redemption. Their journey had proved that sometimes it takes those on the fringes of society to show the way forward. That in the darkest moments, when faced with impossible odds, humanity's greatest strength lies in its ability to adapt, to think differently, and to never, ever give up. As the sun set on this new era of human history, Zara raised her glass one more time. "To the redemption," she said softly, "and to all the adventures yet to come." The others joined in the toast, their glasses clinking as they looked to the stars. No longer a barrier, but a promise. Humanity had taken its first true steps into the galactic community, and the universe would never be the same.